Life is hectic.
Some days are just a blur.
We're Jay and Laura LaFoon, and we help busy couples stay married for life.
Welcome to the Married for Life podcast.
Oh my goodness, we are entering the month of love.
The month of love. I hear people say Valentine's is nothing other than a Hallmark holiday.
I disagree.
Well, thank you.
We as Christians celebrate the birth of Christ all year long, but we commemorate it on December 25th. We as Christians celebrate the resurrection of Jesus all year long, but we commemorate it at Easter.
So for Valentine's, we should be celebrating our love all year long.
Celebrate our love.
Commemorate it on Valentine's. That's a great way to look at it.
I know I'm brilliant.
I know. I thought you were going to agree with the people who are having a Hallmark holiday. I thought you'd be like, yeah, that's all it is. But...
Well, I used to think that way, but that was because I'm cheap, not because I had anything else. I didn't want to have to spend money. But
well, not only are we entering the month of love, we're entering the month of freezing cold weather here in Michigan. It is actually today a balmy 12 below here. But it's sunshiny.
I'm so over it, though. I'm so
snow's on the
over it.
ground, and it looks pretty.
I now know why snowbirds go south for the winter, because they're smart. They're just so smart to do that.
Are we going to become snowbirds someday?
Maybe someday.
Then I'll feel old.
Actually, we should just sell everything and move to an island.
Now, there's a good idea.
Yeah.
We could be beach bums.
We could be beach bums. I could do that very easily. I am a bum already, so.
Just become a beach bum. Well, hey, today we're going to be talking with our good friend Joe Castillo. He is the sand artist from America's Got Talent several seasons ago. If you remember seeing him, it's amazing what he does, and we are excited to talk to him today.
Because he is going to be our special guest at Celebrate Your Marriage in May at Grand Hotel on beautiful Mackinac Island.
And for those of you who want to know more about our Celebrate Your Marriage conference on Mackinac Island, you can see the show notes and check out our website for that information. But let's talk to Joe.
We are super excited for our podcast today because we have a dear friend, we've known him for a number of years now, who has an amazing ability to entertain and inspire and encourage, and you name this
in a very unique form of entertainment.
That's
I guess
right.
That would be the way to say it.
So welcome our friend Joe Castillo. Yay! Hi, Joe.
Thanks. So glad to be here.
Coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You and Cindy
So
live
what
down?
part of Atlanta you probably don't want to say that on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm from Atlanta,
Oh.
so I always wonder, so where do you guys live? But you don't want to say that.
I don't care. We moved to the little town of Fayetteville, and the reason we picked it is that it's literally 20 minutes from the airport.
Yep.
And so I
Exactly.
can fly anywhere, and it works great.
As they say in Atlanta, you live in Fayetteville.
That's
Not
right.
Fayetteville. You live in Fayetteville.
Yeah, well, he's part of the human race, is not part of the Georgia race.
Like, you just cut down all of our Georgia listeners.
Oh, that's all three of them. I'm just kidding. So, Joe, you are a sand artist. Is that correct?
That is correct, but there's a lot of misunderstandings that go along with that. Sand art has really been known down through the years as the guys that pile up huge mounds of sand on a beach
Yes.
and then carve them into fantastical shapes and do amazing things. And what I do is something totally different, in that I have literally a little Tupperware container, about 2.5 pounds of sand. I put it on a clear tabletop with light underneath, bring a camera overhead, and then I tell stories in the sand. And so I can morph from one image to the next. And that's what my sand art entails.
So I've seen you. Obviously, we've seen you a number of times, and we've seen you turn that picture of an elephant into a beautiful baby Jesus. Or I mean, you transform. It's amazing.
I don't think that's exactly what he did,
It's
but
amazing to see what you do. How did you discover your ability to do this?
Well, it's sort of interesting. I did wind up writing a book because it's a question that I get asked the most. And so now I just say, give me $10 and you can do it. But the truth is that God doesn't waste anything. And so from the very early days, being brought up in a community of artists in Mexico City, almost everything I did in the way of art was leading up to the sand art. Most of the things I did were artwork that needed to be done quickly. There could be no preliminary sketches. I had to be able to capture an image with just a few strokes, and then usually when it was done. But the sand art gave me the ability to then morph things, and so I think of courtroom drawings. I airbrushed T-shirts at the county fair. I did cartoons on the beach. I did pastels in department stores. These were all back in my starving artist days, but they were all art forms that led into doing the sand art. Very good.
So, Jill, the first time we saw you, we were actually in the comfort of our living room, and we saw you on America's Got Talent. So how, Jay and I will never be on America's Got Talent, but we like to dream. So what made you do that or apply or however they go through the process, and what was the experience like? Especially, I want to know about Simon. Was Simon doing it then?
Oh, yeah.
No, it was Pierce. Was it Pierce?
The three judges that were on that summer were Howie Mandel, Sharon Osbourne, and Howard Stern.
Right. Oh, that's right. Howard Stern.
And the really sneaky truth is that they had seen my work online and they called me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
I really wasn't interested in going and standing in line for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep.
And going before the judges and that sort of thing. And so the third time they called, my wife, Cindy, who's really the brighter one of the two, said, "Hon, what do you got to lose? Just go try out. It's no big deal." So they flew me down to Austin, Texas, and I got to perform before the judges. I really didn't think it would go anywhere because the only sand story that I had at the time that I could condense to 90 seconds was God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood. And so I performed to that song, and I figured it wouldn't go anywhere because I was going to do God Bless the USA. Howie Mandel is Canadian. Sharon Osbourne is British.
Right.
And Howard Stern, I didn't know if he believed in God or not. So I figured I'd get 3 X's and get sent home. But that's not what happened. They actually stood, gave me a standing ovation, and I made it all the way to the finals.
Yes, we remember. We watched you. I'll never forget. You were doing one thing, and I think it was Jesus, and Howard Stern had to point out to Howie Mandel, "That's your Messiah," because I think Howie's Jewish. But I'll never forget that. That was great. Yeah, we were so excited to watch you, and really, that to me probably transformed you even more as an artist because you had to, like you said, condense it to 90 seconds and keep it very inspiring at the same time.
It really did for a lot of different reasons. One is that most of the stories I'd been telling up to that point were Bible stories.
Right.
I developed a sand art while I was a pastor because I wanted people to remember my messages.
Yep.
And as I developed it, most of the stories were parables. It was the Easter story, the nativity story. And then I was shoved into this new stage where I had to come up with stories that had a much broader appeal.
Sure.
And that was a huge challenge, especially on America's Got Talent, because usually you only get 2 weeks during the quarterfinals and the semifinals to come up with your next piece, and then only 1 week before the finals.
Wow.
And so there were a lot of late nights and a lot of trying to figure out a way of telling a story very quickly.
Yes. Well, you do it so well. One of the reasons Laura and I love being around you is because you can tell you have a pastor's heart. You love people. You want them to know about the Lord, but you use this medium to glorify God. And more people need to understand, I think, that however you're gifted, whether it's artistically, as a business person, as a teacher, whatever the gift the Lord has given you, to use it for His glory is really what it's all about. And been interesting to kind of watch you. You really have had some great experiences since America's Got Talent. Am I right?
I have, and I think the thing that I discovered probably shortly before I got on America's Got Talent was that I could tell a story without any words. And so I could perform a story like the Easter story or the Nativity story or the story of the blind man. And I could perform that in any country, in any language, anywhere in the world, and the people would get it.
Yep.
And that was so powerful because since then, I've had many opportunities to tell those stories in places where they would never invite me in as a pastor or a missionary or a Christian speaker, but I can do artwork, and it's non-threatening. It's, they can't consider it some kind of proselytizing.
Right.
It's just art.
Yep.
And the people get it.
Very good. Well, hey, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the project that we're going to work on together with you and your wife Cindy and my wife Laura. It's called Celebrate Your Marriage.
Oh. I was like, I'm going to get to do sand art?
Sure.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Thomas, Director of Live Events at Celebrate Ministries. Valentine's Day is quickly approaching, and we want to make sure that you have your spouse cared for this year. If you're looking for that perfect Valentine's Day gift, we want you to consider Celebrate Your Marriage at Grand Hotel. This takes place twice a year, every year at Mackinac Island, the crown jewel of Michigan. You've been listening to Jay and Laura's conversation with Joe Castillo, and we're excited to welcome him to the island this May for Celebrate Your Marriage. Jay and Laura have been hosting the Celebrate Your Marriage events at Grand Hotel for over 20 years. This 2-day event allows you and your spouse to take some intentional time away for each other, to focus on your relationship, and all of this takes place at one of the most romantic locations in North America. Celebrate Your Marriage also takes place in October, and this year we're going to welcome special guests Acts of Renewal. Folks, this is the gift that will wow your spouse this Valentine's Day. You can visit celebrateyourmarriage.com to find out about all the dates, the schedule, and coming soon, we're going to be announcing the guest speakers for our VIP experience, and this gives you the chance to extend your stay at Grand Hotel. If you're the adventurous type, you can gift your spouse Celebrate Your Marriage at sea. Jay and Laura are going to be cruising to Alaska in July and the Western Caribbean in January 2020. Details for all of the Laffoon special events can be found at jayandlaura.com. The Ultimate Date Night He Said, She Said winter tour is now underway, and Jay and Laura are going to be in Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Florida, and South Carolina in February. You can get tickets to an event near you. You can see where they are going and find out their full schedule by visiting jayandlaura.com. Now, let's get back to Jay and Laura's conversation with Joe Castillo.
So, Joe, have you and your wife Cindy ever been to Mackinac Island here in Michigan before?
We did have an opportunity to go last year, and we were just enthralled with what a beautiful place it is, and especially the fact that you've got to slow down.
Yes.
There's no cars, there's no taxis, there's no Uber, there's no motorcycles. The fastest form of transportation is horse and buggy, and so slowing down something that we desperately need in our culture.
Well, it's interesting, and we tell folks this all the time as we're trying to promote the event. The ability, you don't have to try to slow down. You just automatically do. It just happens because the pace of the island is that way, and it gives you opportunity to reflect, to and this is going to sound real sappy, but to actually spend quiet, slow time with your spouse and really enjoy the time together. Of course, we're spoiled, but we absolutely love it. And we love that pace, what that pace sets for our marriage conference. So now you and Cindy have been married how long?
21 years this year.
21 years. And I have to tell you that I think your wife is one of the most delightful ladies on the planet.
She is.
She just makes me smile. She's so sweet. And,
she's always got a smile on her face.
Always got a smile on her face.
Maybe not with you, but...
I agree with you totally. She melts my heart, and I tell her she's amazing at least once every day.
There you go.
See, honey, you could learn something from Joe and Cindy. You could tell me I'm amazing.
You're amazing, honey. I tried telling Laura that she's the most beautiful woman on the planet. And she said to me, have you seen, what's her name? Heidi Klum. You really? I said, no, you're the most beautiful woman on the planet to me. And she said, no, I'm the most beautiful woman you could afford. But isn't it fun how God really gives us the person that you never, when you first get married, you don't realize how that love will grow and mature, and how on the road, you two are a perfect team. You get to travel together. If you've got, what's been the secret to your marriage?
Well, I wish I could claim some kind of divine intervention or profound well of wisdom. I think the truth is, and when people ask us how long we've been married, I sometimes joke about this, that I tell people we've been married 65 years. But that's because I was married for 26 years when my first wife passed away from breast cancer. And Cindy was married 22 years when her husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore and left her with 2 teenage kids. And a couple of years later, we ran into each other, hadn't seen each other for 25 years, and God just brought us together like those 2 little magnets. And so probably the truth is that God has used 2 incredible women to sort of whip me into shape. And so I have a real high bar that I have to reach up to. And but if you want to simplify it, I think probably the best thing that I can say is learning how to communicate.
Yeah.
Say what you really feel, what you really mean. Say it in a way that's not offensive, and then be willing to listen well to what your mate is saying to you.
Great words. Great words.
So Cindy had 2 children. Do you all have children together, or did you have children with your first wife?
No children. I had 2. Cindy had 2. They're married. We now have 8 grandchildren, and we love them all.
Jealous. We're jealous.
And we have a great time with them.
So I know we have lots of listeners out there that are in remarriages, blended families, step families, however you want to term that. What was the biggest challenge you and Cindy had in blending families, and what was your greatest accomplishment?
It was interesting that our children were pretty much the same ages, but undoubtedly a blended family has special challenges. And usually, we found it to be true for us, it was the children.
Sure.
When Cindy and I decided to get married, her children were all for it. She had a son and a daughter, and we had a dinner with all of our kids. So there were 4 kids, 2 going to be spouses, and Cindy and I. And my kids were very hesitant. Part of that was because my first wife had really been a great mom, a great role model, just a powerful inspiration. And so when they lost her, it was very, very hard.
Sure.
The thought of replacing her was difficult. And so it's been a challenge. I think we've overcome most of the difficulties and seen God restore these relationships, and I think it's gone well.
And it is one of the things, we're good friends with Ron Deal, who does a lot of work with blended marriages, and he said it's sometimes hard for the couple that's getting married to realize that, yes, we're in love, but our kids haven't fallen in love yet, you know?
That's right.
And that's a fair statement, and I think especially with older children, and again, losing your first wife the way you did to cancer, and if she was a great mom, they don't want to replace mom. And I think that's one of the real strengths that Christian couples can bring to a blended marriage is I'm not going to try and replace anyone. You know, I'm going to be me. I want to build a relationship with you, because I think as Christians, it is about building those relationships and using time as an ally. And our friend Ron always talks about, you don't blend a family, you put them in a slow cooker and just let it cook very slowly.
Let all the flavors marry.
So
that's a great analogy. I love that.
Yeah. So coming up to Mackinac, you and Cindy, let's learn a little bit more about you guys and maybe what makes you tick. What are your love languages?
Mine, of course, is physical touch. I'm Latin American. I'm a hugger. I got that honestly. Don't give me this little wimpy shake hand thing. In Mexico, they have what's called the abrazo. And if you don't know what that is, Americans need to learn what an abrazo is. It's that full male, both arms, hug, your cheeks touch. You know, you just get over all that kind of standoffishness.
I love it. That's great.
Cindy is words of affirmation, And it's one of the reasons that that I have to tell her she's amazing every day.
Yep. Because it really is. Those of us with words of affirmation as a love language, it really is something that needs to be said every day, honey.
Yeah, Jay's love language is words of affirmation, and my spiritual gift is sarcasm. So we have a lot to
We forget so quickly.
Yeah. So, Joe, if you hope the folks that are coming to the conference, if you would hope they would walk away with just one thing from what your time there is, what would that be? Probably
this, Jay. There's a lot of people in our country that are despairing about the direction that we're going, the difficulty that we have in communicating, the factions that have formed and that quibble at each other. But the solution to repairing our country and any home, any town, any village, any city, any country, the strength is in the marriage.
Yep.
And if you have a good, strong marriage, a strong husband, a strong wife, in love, and the kids know that, then that is going to be passed on from generation to generation. And so when people put their marriages back together, they are in the process of transforming the world.
Wow.
I don't think we need to say anything else.
I have chill bumps. I think you're spot on. You're spot on. You're going to be great up there. We're super excited that you and Cindy will be joining us. I think it's going to be a great weekend, and we're so looking forward to it. We haven't seen each other and hung out for a while, so it'll be great to do that as well.
We look forward to seeing you
definitely looking
guys
forward
today.
to it.
Very good. Well, thank you, Joe, for your time. And again, this is Joe Castillo. He's going to be joining us in May at our Celebrate Your Marriage conference.
And to our listeners, we'll have all sorts of links in our show notes for Joe, for Joe's book, for Joe's website, for our conference, for all that stuff. You can find all that information in our show notes.
And thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you so much.
Wow, thanks, Joe. Really appreciated it. And boy, we just love what you do. Love your heart for ministry. Love your heart for couples. And folks, if you would, thanks for joining us. We want to say that first of all, but please share this podcast with your friends. Rate it on YouTube or iTunes or wherever you're listening to it. And we just pray that you will join us again next week.